Hello and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video. Myself, Marta, where as always I'm here with the latest news from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. Today we're going to start things off with some cool news regarding the Hercules set of SoCs from ARM. So what we have here is a pretty interesting little collaboration. We have ARM, Synopsys and Samsung working together to develop a set of optimized tools and IP that will enable chip designers to build next-gen SoCs based on ARM's Hercules processor cores on Samsung's 5LPE or 5nm low power early, to put that in clearer terms, faster. So they are expecting these tools to be used by designers of SoCs for numerous applications, way too many to name. So these set of tools have been certified by Samsung Foundry itself and include a bunch of stuff like Fusion Design Platform, Quick Start Implementation Kit, and these are all enabled to optimize power, performance and area for these 5 low power early designs. ARM are of course also chipping in as well with Artisan physical IP and POP IP, which has been custom tailored for this particular process. Now this is pretty cool news simply because the 5LPE process from Samsung is pretty damn leading edge in terms of process technologies. It provides an up to 25% higher logic efficiency and also allows designers to lower power consumption by 20% at same performance, or instead improve performance by 10% again at the same power. As for when we'll actually see any of these technologies actually being utilized in an actual product, Samsung are expecting tape out on the first chips for 5LPE to begin in the second half of 2019, so we'll see volume production in the first half of 2020. So, pretty damn interesting stuff. We're most likely to see this implemented for us on a consumer level in 5G applications. The rest is going to be things like AI and that sort of stuff. But still, I really find this sort of stuff very interesting. As I've said many times, this is one of the coolest things about technology. Just how you have this ripple effects of, okay, this might not be designed for consumers in mind. I mean, in this particular case, 5G obviously would be, but just for example, you've got something that's not particularly consumer focused, but it has a cool idea at the core of it that perhaps, the technology can be pared down and used for something else, or it inspires another designer to think, oh, that's a good idea, but what about if we did X, Y, Z instead? All that sort of stuff is really interesting and intriguing to me. So, let's move on, shall we, to Intel. So, we've been talking a lot recently about how well AMD have been doing against Intel. Paul discussed yesterday the market share that AMD have gained against their arch rivals, and of course, we all know how just insane Ryzen has been doing. They've been clawing back market share, especially in the critical sector of things like Epic and the HEDT and server markets, and so on and so forth. And we have seen the effects of that with Intel kind of waking up and actually being competitive again. And recently we have seen price cuts on the Cascade Lake X. And also we've seen price cuts elsewhere on their SKU lineup as well for the 9th generation. But if a slide that has been shared by Adored TV, and of course you can find his video linked in the description below this video, is to be believed, well, Intel are willing to shell some pretty hefty amount of cash to disrupt AMD's efforts with Ryzen in particular. So the slide I'm talking about reads Intel's scale advantage financial horsepower. So it is the 2019 meet comp discount at $3 billion and AMD's net income for 2018, which was $0.3 billion. So essentially what Intel are saying here is that, well, due to their sheer size, their financial structure is much more, powerful than that of AMD's. But what the 2019 meet comp discount actually means is, well, this is how much they're willing to shell out to basically put a wrench in the works of AMD's plans. They all have seen the same information that we have seen all over the internet, their roadmaps and so forth, and undoubtedly are getting whispers from insiders and all that sort of thing about what's going on with the next generation of Ryzen and the future plans for, of course, Ryzen 3000, all that sort of thing. So this cost does include price cuts, discounts, and all that sort of stuff. So what does this actually mean? Well, again, we do not know how real this slide actually is. It looks pretty legit, but as with anything where we don't know the source, just take it with a pinch of salt. I would say this regardless of who had posted it. So obviously one of the arenas that AMD have beaten Intel on is the price versus performance, and of course performance per dollar. Those guys obviously pretty much tie into each other directly, and obviously Intel are trying to lower their prices down to try and kind of beat AMD at their own game, as it were. But does this mean that Intel are not confident in their ability to beat AMD on performance? I don't know. I mean, you could take that away from this, but you could also argue that, okay, Intel are fairly confident that they can beat them with, say, Cascade Lake X, and Comet Lake, and all the other lakes that are coming out in the future, but they also want to hit them elsewhere as well. They're not content just to beat them in one arena, they want to beat them in another arena as well. You could very much take that away from this slide, assuming it is legit. Now, unfortunately, we are never going to know how real this is. You know, Intel are never really going to come out and throw their hands up and be like, oh, go on then, guys, you caught us, that slide was real. Obviously, they're not going to really comment one way or the other on this, but it would be interesting if this was legit, and would definitely raise questions about how competitive Intel feel in the performance arena. Obviously, one of the key areas where AMD have beaten them has been the sort of EPYC side of things, with cloud and server and all that sort of stuff, so that may be where they're focusing their efforts. Obviously, we've seen price cuts significantly on the Cascade Lake X side of things, which obviously is definitely significant. Some minor price cuts on the gaming side, and obviously we don't know what else they're going to be spending this $3 billion on as well. So when they're listing their threats from AMD, they are talking a lot about high-performance CPUs, they're talking about their cloud offerings, they're also talking about Rome, as well as notebooks and business PCs. So not really much talked about gaming-wise here, according to this report at least, and again, you can find a link to Adore TV's video in the description below this video. So again, if this information is accurate, it shows where Intel are really focusing their efforts to kind of put a spanner in the works for AMD. Speaking of AMD, however, let's move on to an interesting confirmation regarding the B550A chipset. So this has been spotted by the folks over at computerbase.de, so you will find a link to their article in the description below this video. And basically, they managed to spot a statement from Robert Halleck, whose name you should be very familiar with by this point. And he made a statement on the AMD subreddit about the B550A chipset, which was different from the rumoured B550 chipset, which had been doing the rounds also on the interwebs. So basically, a user spotted a pre-built system using a B550 motherboard from ASRock, and Robert Halleck basically chimed in and said, actually this wasn't a B550 but a B550A, which is not a standard board. And he said, quote, no, it has a B550A motherboard. This is a version of the PCIe Gen 3 Promontory LP chipset, specifically for use in pre-built systems. So to put this in clearer language, this is basically meant for OEMs, and is a refresh of the 400 series motherboards that were also found in pre-built PCs. Now naturally this raised eyebrows amongst the redditors on the subreddit as to why they would do this refresh, especially with a name that was arguably a little bit confusing and cloudily worded, especially for the average consumer. Again, he reaffirmed that this was more for OEMs and not for us as gamers. And he said, quote, OEMs are customers too, and they may have different needs and wants than a DIYer. Not every product decision is considered through the lens of a channel product. So again, this just pretty much confirms that this particular board was targeted towards OEMs. Obviously, it was just a price reducing measure for those companies that obviously want to shave off costs wherever they can. But it is interesting that he felt the need to comment. You could definitely argue that that definitely gives some weight to the existence of the B550. So, we're going to finish things up with a spot of gaming-related news, and it's to do with Blizzard, and I'm sure you know exactly what this is regarding. So, I'm sure you guys have seen the kerfuffle that has been doing the rounds pretty much everywhere on the internet the last few days after Blitzchung of Hearthstone was suspended for supporting Hong Kong protesters. and this has caused quite the uproar on the internet. There was a bunch of outcry, and there's some more stuff that's going to be happening in the future that I'll discuss in a moment, but there has been a ton of pressure and protests, including from things like US senators, human rights organisations, as well as players in response to their suspension of this particular player. So Blizzard have finally addressed this and basically explained why they suspended this player and also revoked prize money from him as well. So the Blizzard president, J. Allen Brack, has basically said that they will be returning prize money to Blitzchung, but they also are sticking by their decision to ban him for supporting Hong Kong protesters, and even went on to say that they are going to continue to do this to any players or shoutcasters who do this in the future. So the original ban was a year, and it's now gone to 6 months, which is why I use the word suspension, because you can come back after 6 months. Originally it was a year. 6 months is still a long time, do not get me wrong. 6 months is an age, but it's better than a year. But they basically said that because he didn't cheat in the tournament, they have done this. However, quote, playing fair also includes appropriate pre- and post-match conduct, especially when a player accepts recognition for winning in a broadcast. There is a consequence for taking the conversation away from the purpose of the event and disrupting or derailing the broadcast. Over the weekend, Blitzchung used a segment to make a statement about the situation in Hong Kong in violation of the rules he acknowledged and understood, and this is why we took action. Every voice matters, and we strongly encourage everyone in our community to share their viewpoints in the many places available to express themselves. However, the official broadcast needs to be about the tournament and to be a place where we are all welcome. In support of that, we want to keep official channels focused on the game. And unsurprisingly, this statement has gone down pretty much like a lead balloon, and they have been criticised for what is a pretty hypocritical statement. And a letter from Access Now wrote, quote, by penalising a player for speaking up in support of protesters exercising their right to freedom of expression as well as assembly and association, Blizzard demonstrates a lack of respect for human rights of its users. So, yeah, this has done basically nothing to calm the controversy, and a backlash surrounding this. In fact, leading into the second related topic of this, there's going to be protests happening at BlizzCon. So I'm sure Blizzard would rather people be excited and hyped up. Yay, BlizzCon, game announcements. Maybe we'll get something worthwhile for Diablo or some new content for StarCraft 2 while I'm dreaming. But multiple groups are in the process of organising protests to take place at the convention. So today, a non-profit organisation by the name of Fight for the Future has launched a website and Discord, and you can find a link to that in the description below this video, to basically organise a protest at BlizzCon event, and there's also a subreddit as well. So you can read all about on their website why they have decided to conduct this particular protest, and obviously you can decide whether or not you agree with their methods, but regardless of all of that, they're going to be protesting outside the convention centre on November the 1st, and it's going to be very interesting to see the sort of attendance that we see there, as well as, of course, the continued backlash and protests against the company over the internet as well. And a product director by the name of Dayton Young spoke to Kotaku via the phone, and they said, quote, we have a lot of gamers at Fight for the Future, so it was on our radar. We're passionate about digital rights, and we thought this was a very clear example of censorship that was very disturbing to all of us. So we wanted to promote it to people in our community and let everyone know this was taking place. Now, naturally, they have addressed the fact that Blizzard have reduced the punishment to Blitzchung, but unsurprisingly, they're not overly satisfied with the fact that it was just a reduction. Obviously, it's great that they've returned the prize money to him, but it's still not brilliant that this happened in the first place, and obviously he's still banned for 6 months, which for a professional player is devastating, as I'm sure you could agree. And they said, quote, the heart of the matter is they censored a man and punished him for speaking out, advocating for his own political freedom, and that's what they're continuing to do. They're saying this because they don't want to upset people, but I think are already upset by their decisions. If Blizzard's true goal to ensure that every player always feels safe and welcome when competing in tournaments and playing Blizzard games, then Blizzard should let players, fans and employees know they can advocate for their own rights without fear of reprisal. So this topic is incredibly complex. I'm not going to go too much into this in this particular video because it's already running a little bit long, but it is definitely telling that we're seeing such a huge outcry against Blizzard here for essentially censoring this particular player for his beliefs, and the fact that they have definitely warned shoutcasters against it as well. There was a head of ESL have also warned shoutcasters against talking about it. I can understand them not wanting to derail, don't talk too much about things that are outside of, X, Y, and Z. We want to focus on the tournament, focus on the game. Cool, but punishing people and censoring them and taking away prize money for mentioning this sort of thing is not what you do. There's a difference between keep things on topic, keep things on track, and literally punishing someone for using a platform that they have earned throughout their own skill to bring attention to something that they personally believe in. I do not agree at all with what Blizzard are doing. I'm just going to go with that. This is a pure example of censorship. If they had gone on some huge tirade, some huge rant, and completely disrupted proceedings, that would be a different story. But from what I understand, that is not what happened here. Again, you can find a link to Fight for the Future's website in the link in the description below this video. You can see all about the project, the statements, why they're doing this, and of course Kotaku's article is linked below as well. Go give it a read, form your own opinions, and of course, as always, let me know in the comments below. Your support is always appreciated. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.